Ya, mohon mati anjir.
Biasanya sih gitu. Dari kemarin tuh sound mulu tuh pak. Itu yang aneh. Nge-pause kan nge-pause sound. Enggak sound lag. Gitu ya.
Kemarin juga siapa ya, gue lihat dia ganti headset anjir.
Aneh bener dah tuh. Tinggal colok doang ke PC. Tahu dah mau diapain lagi. Kalau misalnya mau anu berkasnya tinggal di itu udah pakai rekam gitu.
Nama apa, ada yang komen internet rumahnya number one. Ini streamnya aja di rumahnya masih jalan cuy. Ya kalau internet mati streamnya mati juga bego anjing.
Iya,
Kalau
tolil
ada
banget dah, tolil banget dah.
sumpah demi orang, demi Allah dah. Aduh. T1 lagi TI technical issue.
Halo Nabil, welcome.
Wah, tidak mau. Epic abadi, yeay.
Oh, udah Nero. Udah drafting.
Never come, but we're finally here in the draft at game number 1. We did have some technical issues. Slacks actually stole the headsets. He was running around. He didn't give him back to T1. Was even tweeting about Fog to divert attention. Awful man, really. But we're finally here. We're ready for the draft. And now we can talk about Totem. So, Fog, I'm going to ask you first. What can we expect here from Alliance?
Well, step one, I was hoping that T1 would take out that Tidehunter. I think that's also a really good option if Alliance was able to get it. I think other hero that me and Effie were looking at is probably the Lina is the other, of course, one the panel was talking about, at least for Alliance, heavy contested hero between the two of them. And then we'll trickle down to our, our Snapfires, our Disruptors, big team fight heroes, depending on what they're playing against. And of course, Alliance might have to be thinking right now is, do we want to ban the Doom? Do we move it up in priority? Do we look for eyoooo? Because they had a couple struggle games on it too, so let's see what it's going to be.
I think we should expect a Magnus pick too, just because of his performance yesterday was absurdly good. He did well in groups, but after what we saw yesterday, I think this should be a hero to look for, and there it is.
There we go.
Priority shifted for sure after the yesterday series.
And for T1, whenever we watch him play, they just seem like you give them a comfort pick and they will outplay you. That's the name of the game most of the time. Jenkins always says that this team will pick the greediest draft and still fight you. Like they would go 3 Midas and still fight you because they just know that they can perform the team fights better. So, Effie, could we expect more of these team fighting heroes to go with the Magnus, or we maybe see the Doom that Carl's been running around a lot?
I think it just really depends on what Alliance are looking to play here, but the reason why we expected Magnus to come out is because, number one, he does enable his greedy cores, but two, in the past, Magnus used to just be played around RP, right? And that's what people saw him as. But this new style of just Horn Toss Skewer back as a form of initiation is absurdly good. You can play without the cooldown of RP. And in the right hands, Magnus can just check a lot of bases. And those are just ensuring that your net worth is always up and just always having the ability to initiate RP. So it's incredibly valuable, especially in the hands of T1 or
that
Alliance,
intro.
by the way. S4 plays a great Magnus. So
Even when we are not,
actually
they're always
consider it.
live on the brother, always watching.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they're opener, actually, the two supports just like this. Maybe they're really expecting one of those like spirits that are really pesky and they don't want Lion to be banned out. They want to have that hard disable for it, but I know Snapfire's been super contested, but really interesting to see them just open up with that. Because now it's your supports are not going to be frontliners. Initiation will be a little bit harder, and T1's going to be like just Snap Sticks Lina. So that feels like, I mean, I look at T1s and it just feels much more comfortable, and it feels like it just ticks more boxes in the draft overall.
100%.
I was not expecting that.
All of the mid heroes that you want to first
I was
phase,
really
you
not
should go
expecting
against Lina, because she doesn't have any bad
that
luck.
intro.
She scales into the late game. She shoves waves. And
Just
can
a subtle
play with
reminder
two
that
items
everything we do
POE
is captured on
PvP.
camera here.
And
Even
obviously
when
built
we
it
are
to
not,
Silver Edge, which is
they're
the
always live on the brother, always watching.
Perhaps the reasoning behind Lion is that they know that T1 do like to play heroes like Puck that are slippery, and just securing it early in the draft makes sure it doesn't get banned out later. Another idea behind it could be that if they are taking a fight on Vision and they have Vision of this Magnus, Lion can pre-cast the Hex, and when he blinks in, he'll be instantly hexed, right? So that could have been what they were looking at here.
I also saw, Lion yesterday, 2 times we saw teams pick like illusion heroes into the Lion, or pick like these elusive heroes into the Lion, and we're like, wow, Lion looks really good now. And we saw the mana drain like own throughout the game. He's just getting super farmed and taking out either the TB illusions or it was, I can't remember what the other one was, but either our Spectre was the other one. So.
Yeah, that's typically how it works. And Lion was forgotten for a really long time, up until Puck was the mid hero of the patch 8 months ago, and it made Lion rise to popularity, right? Storm as well, and Storm has been an incredible hero throughout this tournament, I would say. I doubt we'll be seeing it come out of Alliance. It's not a limp hero, but it is pretty nice here. Like, I look at these two heroes, and I would like to see a Storm.
Yeah, I want something that Alliance can start the fight with. That starts the fight with the Lion, that you can jump in and follow up, and something else. The Lion's gonna take some time, right, to get that Blink Dagger. So I want something that's just gonna naturally be able to go in and start the fight, which could be that mid hero. But it's gonna be limited because they've been a bad matchup because he needed to be that kind of catch and jump in, and he never got to play the game. It was 20 minutes long. They got that cross Maybe give me something else there. So we're seeing very team-specific bans coming out, and it is going to be the Ember. So I felt like this was going to be forced, but now it's like into this matchup versus Lina, I'm a little worried already off the bat for Lina. Because I saw this the other day. I saw this in the group stage. It was a worse matchup versus Necropos, but maybe let's see. Maybe we have even worse during the mid-game. Do something about it.
Ya, Iwan kalah. Enggak sih.
Maybe that might put a little bit more fear into head-on team fights, because right now it's looking a little hard for them to.
For sure, and to add on to that, this concept that they have going with this Lion and Ember is basically get in, kill a target quickly, and get out. And by having a Dawnbreaker, you can negate that. Also, Bane is quite good at killing the Ember Spirits, so they do help that a little bit. They do have the catch, right?
The fun T1 poke is, I know what, it was Curtis who likes to always say, now they have like a sleep into a skewer, they have like this really fun little combo, lots of pokes as well coming out from Dragon Slave, they have Shockwave, so they're always gonna have good ways to just spam, take fights.
What's the logic behind the Morphling here?
It's a pretty good Morphling game.
Okay.
There aren't really... There is the Bane who could catch him out and kill him. That is a threat there. But in the Dawnbreaker, Lina, and Magnus, you can preemptively cast your Strength More fight. And scales better than these heroes, including the Lina. It's just that I don't feel like he's going to... have the space, honestly.
It feels greedy.
Yeah.
With the two supports as well, like they're kind of weaker supports. I feel like his lane could be a bit hard, and in the past also people used to really like Lina versus Morphling also. Like sure, it's a little bit different, times have changed where it's just right-clicking Lina, but it's still kind of same concept. Like if you catch Morph in a bad situation, boom, Laguna Blade plus a double nuke, he's probably just gonna die if he's out of position.
And the thing about that is you don't want to go in first with your Morphling because you could get gripped or LSA'd from Fog, right? But you're out. Doesn't want to go first either because the same thing could happen to him. So they actually do have a lack of a strong, durable front laner because neither Ember nor Morphling can fill that role for each other unless there's some kind of snowball start on the Ember.
What's the S4 hero even left, right? Shaker's gone, DK's gone, Tide gone. It's like Beastmaster's one of the few left, but...
They've done Legion before against the Bane. We've seen how that's worked out.
Yeah.
It's a really tough matchup, especially if you have to go be the one initiating, because you just get Nightmared and that's over.
It could just be the Mars here. It doesn't
Oh,
really
well, there's no
banned as
Mars
well.
anymore.
Yeah.
We're out of heroes.
limited.
Is Centaur a possibility here? Can we run that as the tanky initiator, even if he's not the most consistent stun?
I just haven't seen Centaur at all. I just
Yeah,
don't
me
know if
neither.
I don't know if the hero's very good anymore.
I don't think he's good enough here, especially with the way people have been playing Lina, just building a Satanic. She absolutely shreds them and has no concern of dying, right? It's just weird to me that they picked this Morphling over the S4 hero and didn't last phase it because I don't think it would have been banned out here because it doesn't look like the greatest of Morphling games. Like he does fine versus all of these heroes individually, right? He can scale. There's no kind of instant stun, but like you said, he can die from Fog. He can just get burst down if he makes one mistake.
And now they had a bunch of time to really think about what that last pick is for Savage. Just like, okay, do you want to play like a PL or something? I mean, there's an Ember, so maybe not the PL, but he can just think about a specific matchup, what he wants to play versus that Morphling. And he has Bane, so super strong lane that he's gonna have. He's gonna be able to farm really well. He's not gonna be pressured too much.
Also a Savage and Kira, the Morphling, so he knows exactly what he hates playing against.
Exactly.
So it's a tough thing to get in time on. And Mira's completely right. If you're picking the last two picks, you have to consider what can your enemy ban in these last.
Great matchup of Morphling to Wraith King, like Morphling destroys
Wraith King.
And
Baru Wake up.
it has
Farmingnya menang
just
WK.
run the maneuver because you look at Alliance's draft, there's not really any high cooldowns that you're afraid of. There's a mana burn from Lion, there's Chains, Ember can just keep you there. So I'm guessing they just want to steamroll them
Sulit
after
sih.
hitting the timing.
Ember Morphling WK.
Timber is a good option. I know Brian was like screaming it over there.
Sebar linanya.
The Wraith King and all that.
Ini Magnus
It's not
support
bad,
ya.
it's an S4 hero, and there's just not really much left.
WK-nya bakal ini sih.
I feel like these lanes,
Farmingnya bakal
lanes
cepat.
look super weak from Alliance. I'm worried.
Enggak,
I've
Magnus
seen the
support
same
atau
Esports
ini tiga
game
tuh,
I've
Pak?
seen it played
Magnus
lately.
3.
So
Dina support ini ya. Atau Dawnbreaker support.
Kagak lah. Dinamit itu.
Dawnbreaker support tuh.
Non Ember soalnya.
Kuku pakai ini dong.
Kuku
Eh,
Magnus.
Magnus ya.
Kuku Magnus.
We're
Seper
gonna go
Dawnbreaker.
20-minute timing that T1 want to play for, then Sand King is another better hero here, but it's pretty much because there was nothing left. However, there is the ability to stun or counter initiate, which is going to be nice. It's just that I don't think the Sand King is going to be the one to run first. Something Alliance do have going for the Morphin though is there's a lack of enough.
Harusnya ini ya. Kita bakal nonton Wake Up Park
I don't think we saw
20 menit.
Yeah, I don't think we saw the Dawnbreaker go for it. There is Enfeeble, which can be frustrating in later stages, but early on we've seen, most people aren't really skilling it. So I think if Alliance, if they can play fast paced, if they don't get smashed in their lanes, they do have a good way to fight back, because I do think T1's is a bit greedy for them to actually just like... it's going to take some time for them to build up this Wraith King, as we've seen that hero's gotten nerfed several times. So Alliance, I mean, I have to just stare at lanes. Like first 10 minutes, I have to see if S4 has a decent time on this Sanking, because I've seen so many games lately as Sanking where this hero just doesn't get to play. Like it dies like 4 or 5 times in laning phase, and then you're just a single blink stun.
But there's also this potential of Alliance playing the tempo game too, depending on how lanes go, right? Because if Sun King does get the early blink and Morphling doesn't get severely pressured, he does do well individually versus these heroes, right?
Right.
And we've seen Nico maybe group up with his team early and pressure towers and not just sit back and farm triangles. That's not really his style of carry.
And you were asking earlier for a high damage offlaner. Sanking does bring that to the table. You have a decent hunting squad with the Lion and the Snapfire as well. It's really just the lanes, it seems like to me, for Alliance. That's the biggest worry.
That's really my biggest concern. If they can make it out of the lanes and if they're even, I think they can actually do a pretty good job of fighting back. As long as they just avoid team fights, be very aware of Dawnbreaker. You know, there's a hero that not everybody's really playing so much, so just be really aware of that global potential.
Well, let's see if T1's coach March agrees with this analysis, and he also thinks that they can take them over. As we go down to Sir Action Selects, who's going to ask him some questions.
Hello, March. Thank you so much for taking time with us. Game's about to begin. Strong opener with Lena Magnus. Saw you took a little bit of time with that last pick. What was going through your head?
We were thinking between few heroes, the carry heroes that we wanted to pick, right? And yeah, we were trying to just find the best option there.
Don't give away too much, my friend. We still have a whole best of 3. Looks like Alliance's lanes looking a little weak. Do you expect your boys to take advantage of that?
Yep, I think their lanes are weak, but they have a better late game going in with Sanking and Morphling, so I think our team wants to take advantage of that.
All right, well, best of luck. We will see if they will as our game begins. Let's throw it to the casters.
Thank you, Sir Action Slacks. Alliance versus T1. Sunspan with Cinderin, best of 3, and this is for elimination Cinderin. Whoever loses this is out. Winner moves on a little bit further at TI-10.
Into top 8. So
yes.
Obviously, starting in that upper bracket, which T1 did, is the blessing. You skip 1 round of the lower bracket, but we've seen many times at TI teams looking hot going into the upper bracket. They lose their first set, they drop down, lose again, and that is a fate you really don't want to face. When you feel like you came in a good position, you can get knocked out almost just as quickly if things go awry. So looking to take this series against Alliance, of course. I think fair to say, based on how groups went and how the upper bracket went for T1 against OGD, taking at least a game against the Juggernauts. T1 probably fair to assess them as the overall favorites in this matchup. But Alliance have been picking up a little bit of momentum, obviously going off that win yesterday. And you heard in the pregame the discussion about how S4 has said they've learned a lot from the group stage. And Alliance is one of those teams that can, how to say, they can pick up some momentum, they can learn from their mistakes, and obviously it is a tough matchup today, but
You think, I mean, when you're playing group stage, not everybody's really scouting each other as closely because you're playing a ton of games and a ton of teams at the same time. But when it gets to this stage, there's a lot of prep that goes in for this specific team. Alliance has a little bit more time to work with, I would say, but T1 obviously coming from upper bracket. They're obviously disappointed that they lost that best of 3, but should be an exciting matchup nonetheless. And of course, Alliance is, I mean, they were the top EU team overall because of
their showings at the actual majors weren't what they had hoped. Just basically just bombed out both times. So obviously for them, they have a lot to prove here. And yeah, the whole thing about prep, I think, is pretty important. If you do talk about Dota with S4, he's a very intelligent player. The way he thinks about the game, I think he's a huge part of why Alliance won back at TI3. Just this overall understanding of macro movements in the game. Alliance were outstanding in that tournament. It's obviously many years ago, but they kind of, I wouldn't say they pioneered split pushing because that was a concept that was known from back in Dota 1.
They perfected
but
it.
they mastered it at that event, and they did such a great job just playing the map at a different level from other teams that eventually they got caught up to, and then they started losing in subsequent tournaments after TI. But I think S4 really a clever player. So hopefully the prep that he has done going into this will show. But so far so good for T1 in the lanes, I would say. Carl in the mid lane, Lena against Ember.
Sound.
You know, this reminds me of a game we had yesterday. Was it
Lagi
Emo
nih
who
pause
played
apa? Bener kan?
Ember against
Look. Coba.
Team Spirit, that was 2 days ago by now. Time flies when you're having fun. But it was the IG versus Team Spirit series in the upper bracket, where eyoooo got a last pick Ember into a known Shadow Fiend.
Yep.
So picked it into a losing lane, but they assessed that it was still worth it for its overall potential impact on the game, and they did end up winning that game, obviously. Limp in a similar situation here. Lina's a tough matchup. You're not going to win this lane ever if the players are equally matched. And I think Karl against Limp is a pretty fair lane matchup overall in terms of just raw lane mechanical skill. So I would imagine Karl will be pulling ahead here.
Yep, I mean, relatively even to start things out, but of course it is early, like you said. They're going to get each respective water rune. Nico Baby this time around will be playing the Morphling in this bot lane, and we can talk a bit about Dawnbreaker, who gets canceled there. FNG Shockwave brings him back in, and Zephyr secures the first blow with that last right click.
When you're playing these squishy 5s against Dawnbreaker, you need to be quick on your fingers. You need to be ready for that play to come. As soon as the Celestial Hammer goes out, you have to stun her. Hanskin hesitated for too long there, and FNG, not Hanskin. Let's focus on the right player here. Hesitated for too long with that Earth Spike and ended up taking 2 attacks from the Starbreaker.
Yeah.
That needs to get stopped instantly. As soon as the hammer gets thrown, you have to stun, and gets punished there. And Zephyr manages to get first blood. Very good for the Dawnbreaker. We'll be getting boots as a reward. This hero is exceptionally good at chasing down heroes because it's just so strong in lane. So with these freshly picked up boots, look for Zephyr to just go aggressive.
Now he's going to take some damage here, but we've talked about the Dawnbreaker support in the past, and some lineups feel a little iffy, as it were, especially as a support. Obviously, she's going to be very good in the laning stage, as we're seeing right now, but this game in particular, there are a lot of stuns that set up her ultimate for the later stage of the game. You have the Nightmare, you have the Fiend's Grip, obviously. LSA is pretty low cooldown, Wraith, Fire Blast as well, and then the huge RP. So literally every hero can theoretically set up the Solar Guardian, which I mean, I think you and I agree is probably the most important aspect of that hero going mid-game and beyond.
Absolutely.
Top lane, Tron going to get caught out, takes a considerable amount of damage, but will get through it. Nightmare into the Wraith Fire Blast now is 23 Savage, blocking S4. He will be able to walk away as those little skelly buddies are chasing him.
The boys, as we call them.
The boys. I think that's copyrighted by a TV show, Sindrin.
Oh.
Can't say that.
Okay. Well, hopefully they're not watching that. There's probably not that much overlap between the writers of that TV show and TI, but you never know.
You never know.
You get surprised sometimes with where people's interests lie. So,
especially you.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know what that was supposed to mean.
Because you have no interest. That was the joke. Zephyr makes his way to the top lane. Wraith Fire Blast into the Starbreaker. The Burrow Strike is there in time for S4. He's going to take so much damage from that hammer.
I think one saving grace for Alliance here against the Dawnbreaker ult, like we talked about. Yes, you have a lot of good combos with it, but it's not a good Ags game. There's no hero on Alliance that really suffers against that 60% evasion. Morphling a lot of the time can, go for more of a magic-based build with the E-Blade. And I think waveform, attack talent, and all the stuff that comes way later in the game, I think can't miss, if I'm not mistaken. I'm actually not 100% on that. Good waveform bottom. Aggressive play out the
Looks like Cuckoo might take a tumble here. Has his skewer available, but is just completely stun locked by Alliance, who get their first kill of the game and this series.
Yeah, they can easily take advantage of that.
Sama-sama api nih di mid.
They know they're 2v1.
Lion, one of the best supports in the game,
2v1. Not
Sama-sama
that
api,
2v2, especially as a 5.
Skill 3-nya nggak bisa nahan
whenever you outnumber, you just have so much lockdown for your carry to just go to town. They do kill
langsung habis sekali skill 1 tuh.
He has still managed to almost find level 5 down here, so I don't think
Kan cuma absorb berapa doang dia kalau level 1, level 2 tadi.
Masih ngambil talent kalau mau full sampai nahan ininya, nahan apa ultinya.
Not the biggest of deals, but obviously Alliance will take what they can get in these lanes.
And Whitemon not able to secure the rune. Limp will still get that invisibility. As looking at the overall CS here, let me bring it up real quick. Wraith King sitting at 38 and 10 versus the 33 and 8 of the Morphling, so relatively even. Of course, 23 Savage will eventually go into the jungle. This is the thing I like about Wraith King as a position 1. It kind of creates space for some, like a position for like Dawnbreaker theoretically to get some farm once he enters that jungle.
Yeah.
Semi full time, if that's even a word. We'll just go it.
Full-time. That's called part-time.
Part-time job as S4 gets the Burrow Strike off.
Mati dong
taking some damage, but the Cookie ends up saving S4 for about 2 seconds, but Zephyr is there to clean up yet again. Seems to be everywhere, and he doesn't even have his ult yet.
Now he has a lot of freedom to move. Cuckoo is doing such a good job playing alone down here. He's almost level 6, so you don't even feel bad about this if you're Zephyr. Might even end up killing Hanskin here if Limp doesn't come over to help.
He's going for it. Limp
He has
in
the
area.
hammer.
And not going to pursue any further. Cuckoo getting some mana drained here. Has to skew out the safety. That means he's completely depleted.
Surely Zephyr doesn't do this, right? Okay. It almost looked like he was going to try to dive him in the face.
It's 7 minutes. Yeah.
Learned from Cuckoo from yesterday. Just go for it, and then if you fail, you just write, we need wards. So
that's true.
He did have a ward.
That is the play. Oh, Earth Spike into
Oh,
the
setelah game
waveform.
ini
Cuckoo looks to be
Evil
done again.
Genesis.
So 2 kills in this lane for
Setelah game
Alliance.
ini
Yeah.
EG lawan VG.
Starting to get back into this game, which I mean, it's not like it's out of reach by any means, but T1 definitely off to a slightly better start right now.
Selanjutnya Secret IG. Ini keren juga nih Secret IG ini upper bracket. Habis itu yang terakhir PSGLGT lawan VP.
Nggak usah ditonton itu main.
Itu. Tapi gue penasaran sih.
Penasaran ini.
Tengah malam sih. Kayak lewat deh jam 1 malam sih.
Stun and the regen rune, and Carl just getting kited around. Another kill goes the way of Alliance as FNG taking some harassment, but looks like he'll live through the day thanks to the support of the rest of his team.
Yeah, great rotation there. Bringing Hanskin was crucial to killing off the Lina. They're going to smoke here in full vision though. So T1 definitely know that this is happening. Let's see if they guess the right move though. FNG mana burning here. Zephyr's going to walk right into him.
Yeah, the fact that Zephyr is level 4 despite being involved in so many kills is kind of weird actually. Feels like he should be a higher level right now, but
he hasn't taken much lane. That's what you trade off when you leave the off lane, right? It's that you give the Magnus the solo experience, and while kills are nice, if you don't soak up any lane space, you don't progress, right? So I think now that Zephyr is showing mid, he might even sit here all the way until level 6, because Bane will need the tome in this game. So might just park him here. As you pointed out, top lane is also an option. You could just put the Dawnbreaker in the safe lane, put Wraith King into the jungle. But this way you might get... You're definitely going to get more gold on Wraith King if you let him take the lane and the big camp. But S4 making sure that is not the case here. Digging that up. With a bounty, getting a bounty rune out of his good old shovel.
Mati.
Aduh. With a quick burrow strike. There's the stun from Zephyr. And S4
orang
looks to be mega dead here. Actually does a nice job of sidestepping the Starbreaker, but it just delays the inevitable here.
And keep in mind, this is a Sand King with Vanguard against the Wraith King Skeletons, and he still dies. So you can't really be tankier than this at this point as Sand King with Soul Ring Vanguard, but it's just not enough against these 3 heroes. Alliance looking a little bit lost over here in the triangle, I gotta say. They've been standing here for quite a long time, and they're just on top of a ward, so essentially kind of wasting their time. They obviously don't know this, but T1 are just not gonna go there. And you understand what Alliance are thinking. You're playing against a lineup that has Magnus Wraith King. You're assuming there's going to be big ancient stacks, but T1 honestly haven't really paid much attention to that area just yet. So I don't know if this is going to be something we see developing as like a new meta almost, where teams, because of the anticipation that the opposite team are going to invade your triangle, you just don't focus on it that much early unless you feel like you can clearly defend it, then you just don't
next level thinking
right,
essentially.
then you can't steal
LSA, here comes the Solar Guarding as well, but S4 able to get the burrow strike off in time to at least create a little bit of distance.
Lagi dong
But
nih.
again, completely outnumbered with 4
Alright,
members of
4 orang
T1
lah
in the
tuh.
vicinity.
Kenapa?
He's now
Jangan beli
0-4.
Vanguard.
It was what Fog was talking about. This happens in a lot of games for offlane Sand King, especially if he's left alone. And now, finally, all right, FNG, I think, took the Tome of Knowledge, so he's going to make a move with Limp. They have Finger of Death. Could very easily burst anyone they find, except Wraith King, who can, of course, put a point in the ultimate. They will find Carl. That would be a very big pick.
Yeah, this would be a huge one. It looks like it's going to be an easy one on top of that. FNG gets his first.
Kosong nggak tuh?
Finger stack of the
in connection with the Siege Creep being alive mid, and FNG is going to tank this at least for a bit. Okay, Mortimer
Searing Chains with the Mortimer's Kisses. Look, oh, it's from super long range. Great anticipation as well. Alliance.
Very
the tier 1 as well.
Alliance, yeah, getting the mid tower out of that original smoke move onto the Lina. That's a very high value play. More or less equalizing the game with that, actually. They were starting to fall 2k gold behind, but found a lot out of that. And of course, let's keep in mind, Nico Baby is getting a lot of space as well. Opting to go for first item Skadi here. Interesting choice.
Wow,
Obviously.
first item. Well, after Morbid Mask, but that...
Yeah.
What the fuck, man, itu baby?
I don't know if I've ever seen that, actually.
It's not the most common build. A lot of the times you see Morph getting some sort of a build-up item, like sometimes you get Yasha, sometimes you get a full Manta, sometimes you see the Diffusal if it's a good game for that.
Super good Scotty game against Wraith King and Dawnbreaker and the likes as Bane's going to be taken out.
Eh, bullshit.
Savage.
Armlet ya?
3 shots from him.
I love Armlet
Pantes.
on Wraith King. It is such a good item. Whether, like, whatever you go
Saya
after, if it's
gepok
the
gitu
Silver
dong
Edge
darahnya,
or the
gila.
Deso,
Nambah
or I
damage,
guess in
nambah
some
STR,
cases
nambah
Radiance.
speed. Wah, gila.
I really like the
Critical
Armlet
dia
first to
ini.
just hit such a strong peak
Sekarang
already
gua
10
tahu
minutes in
critical
with these
fix
two
sih,
items. You saw him
ini
basically
nggak
two-shotting
chance lagi.
Lion there.
Yeah.
With that massive crit.
Jadi emang bener-bener serem.
270% critical strike damage on a 4-second cooldown is no joke.
That's the old CK skill, too. They kind of swapped.
Yeah.
Poor CK. I guess people are more have an affinity towards Wraith King more than CK these days, anyway.
Yeah. Well, what they did do for CK, though, they increased the chance, right? I think at some point the critical strike was 11% chance, now it's 33, and the numbers were obviously tweaked.
11? Are you
Yeah,
sure about
I'm pretty
that?
sure it used to be that. It's a long time.
11?
We're both old.
I'm going to say 18, just
Okay,
the
so
one
here's one of
person
the
in
perks
chat
of
that's
being
going
old,
to check
okay?
this
You
out.
have a lot of things you can remember. You also have a lot of things you can't remember, and a lot of things you might misremember, which makes for great conversation. Because sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, but at the very least, people are talking.
Kuku
Sometimes you're right,
kenapa?
sometimes you're wrong, and you're always an idiot as well.
Yeah,
so.
that is true. That
Kalau
comes
pas
with being
saya lo
older.
mampus ke Darby kan.
My bottom lane, tier 1 tower getting harassed a bit here as Limp and Company
This could be a strong
in
flank
the area.
for
Yeah, we're seeing the
T1.
flank now from T1. 23 Savage.
Someone's in trouble.
Handskin in the trees. If they can get Limp, that'll be the high priority target. Looks like it'll be Handskin instead. The rest of his team abandons him, but with good reason.
Alliance dipping there with 1 death is very good. Considering what angle T1 got there and how Alliance's heroes were positioned, that could have gone way worse if 23 Savage could have found a higher priority target.
Question is, does T1 actually want to push this? Because S4 looks to be mounting some sort of defense. S4 not too far away from a Blink Dagger himself. This wave will almost ensure that he picks that up, in fact. And with that, likely to try to get something started. And of course, this is the beauty of Zephyr, like you talked about so many times. Or I should say, Dawnbreaker.
One time.
Well, we know we've talked about
Actually
this.
twice. I did
We've
talk about
had
it
a couple
twice.
games here.
See, that's one of the perks of being old. You can just make, you know, was
Where
it once
am
or
I?
twice? I don't know. You talked about it a lot, you know.
Anyway, to finish the thought that you rudely interrupted,
Sorry.
Solar Guardian just allows you to be everywhere. It's like a
Yang
mini...
pegang kata-kata gue nih. Kalau 18 menit morphingnya jadi
not
Skadi,
this.
It's like
alien
a
menang.
hunt on
Kalau
a support
120 menit
hero.
belum jadi,
Push
alien
the
kalah.
lanes really easily and then join the fight whenever.
Yep.
And if you die, it's really not that big of a deal.
All right, so if you're confused about what he just said, the point he's making is it's a global ability, okay? That was the point of the haunt. It has nothing else in
Thank
common
you,
with that
Synderen.
ability.
I really appreciate
It is
that.
global.
Kuko, he's going to skewer as a fish. Will be out as a result. S4 has the Burrow Strike to cancel the TP, and Hanskin and Company should be able to clean up Vayne pretty easily.
Yeah.
It actually reminds me,
of their
Synderen,
mid-tower, though.
the extension was updated today with a bunch of new features, one of which was the most, what is community out, well, what am I trying to say? The one that people wanted the most, which is the top bar has the skills videos as well.
Very
So
nice.
if you don't understand a word that we're trying to actually explain in terms of the abilities, you can look for yourself. Makes our job a lot easier. Also takes
eventually
over our
in the
job to
future
some
we won't
degree.
need to say anything. It will just be,
Yeah.
all of it will be in the tool.
That's right.
The tool
It'll
will just start communicating as
yeah,
well.
I think
It will,
we can
it will
get to that
cast
point.
for us.
Yeah, the AI will take over one
Yep.
day. I think we agree on this. You could be the leader of that. S4 pushing out that bot lane. Some steering chains here. I don't think that Alliance wants to push 2K network lead for T1 though, as looks like BKB just about to be finished on Carl.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the go time for each respective team? Because we had the Blink Dagger on S4. We don't have the Blink quite yet on Kuku. He went for the Helm, which we've been seeing a lot in this tournament.
Like you said, the dagger is coming out to Magnus.
Okay,
So
it's on its way.
He
Great.
does have the dagger.
But what's the go time?
T1's timing is really, really strong right now, actually. They got Dagger, BKB, as well as the Deso on Wraith King, so there are a lot of potential plays opening up for them right now. I think looking for the bottom tier 1 tower and maybe even finding a fight would be great, and then you can think about Roshan perhaps. Wraith King, pretty good hero at killing Rosh. So, especially with this item build. Alliance, what do they have coming up? So Morph is going to get the Scotty.
Skewer back Cuckoo.
Mati itu orang.
Continue your thought, please.
Double damage lagi.
So Scotty coming up on Morph. Ember
Iya
is
sih?
going Kaya San.
Enggak dong, Empower loh Pak.
Not sure how
Empower
good that's going to
sakit
be
banget.
in this game for Limp, but
Sama apa
obviously
namanya?
he is very far
Clarity
behind
anjir.
the Lina, so perhaps you just need to get a little bit creative with which
Nah,
direction you're
udah.
going. And those are pretty much the big items. FNG only 300 away from a blink, as a matter of fact, so maybe he can get that
Udah
tier
Scotty
S5
anjing.
line. That's not a bad timing.
No.
Around 18 minutes, pretty good.
It looks like T1 will finally get this tier 1 bot.
Mantap banget.
Udah Skadi ya.
LSA is going to connect. There's
Mati
the
si Ro.
Beaster from afar as well. Laguna Blade finishes off Nico.
Lewat tolol sih itu mah.
Hanskin trying to
Oh,
take
anjing,
out
what
the
the fuck,
tower, but it's very healthy.
For lack of a better word, that seemed a bit naive, almost.
Nepire sekali
Well, it's
gaplok.
obvious from our perspective
Oh
with
my
the vision
God.
that we have, but you're pushing the top tier 1 tower with only Snapfire
Snapfire
protecting you, not
literally
something like
darah
a
full
Blink Sand King
gaplok
that can
anjir
instantly
sama
interrupt
WK
spells like Great
Desolator
Clear or
weh.
counter the Lina. But also T1
300
weren't really
damage
showing
kan,
that many heroes
main
to
power.
inspire you with the confidence to go for that play. So I think Alliance bit over a little bit more than they could chew there. And yeah, what did T1 effectively use? Only really Fiend Scrape. Laguna Blade is a low cooldown. That's going to be ready again. They still have RP. I think if you're T1 and you find this double damage rune here, you're like, all right, let's just go Roche.
Yep.
Your team fight is available. So
From Alliance, we'll see if
Iya,
they
masih.
find a kill here. Sleight of Fist going to
Siapa
dodge
lawan
some
siapa?
spells from Carl.
Oh my
The
God.
21 Savage
Alien.
jumps in and
Ya, main
it's gonna
gerak
be a
anjir
very
itu.
quick kill on a Hanskin. In the meantime, Epicenter goes up, but there's the RP to counter it. And T1 taking 3 kills for themselves.
Semuanya satu hit
and
anjing
basically
sama
no
WK.
damage in this engagement.
Satu hit sekarat, satu hit
23
sekarat.
Savage almost one-shot a Snapfire
Dede.
with Medallion.
Double damage as
Oh,
well.
they even
Ya.
Ya.
Does get off the attribute shift though. And wow.
Nggak ada harapan
Buset.
sih.
Yep,
Sekali
double
geblok
damage
segitu
still there
darahnya,
for 23 Savage, and into the Roche pit they go. T1
Lagi
starting
ini
to
loh,
run away
masih
with things.
ke
Yeah, this is starting to
SPR
get
anjir.
really ugly. They're just flat out outclassing Alliance
Atributnya.
right now. These last 5 minutes have not been pretty. They kind of equalized the early game Alliance did after having a tough lane mid, but haven't really been able to find much momentum from Limp on
Itu
the
yang
Ember
terjadi
Spirit.
kalau
The games
lu
we've seen
greedy
Emperor win in this
pagi-pagi
tournament
beli item
have
mahal
largely
anjir.
been off. You know, you get out of lane, either you do very well or you at least stay afloat, and then the team sets up moves for you. Your hero is very high tempo, and can do a lot, but it just hasn't really been the case for Alliance here. So you see this smoke and broken rather.
Boom.
Not broke.
3 kali hit doang.
That's a lot of damage.
Udah
Snapfire.
juga
Even
gitu.
find Limp bottom
Lihat
here in
si
the
WK-nya
picture-in-picture
SK-nya.
bottom right. Not sure if our observer found Limp, but
His dead body somewhere.
we can pinpoint the position of the
and,
corpse
I mean,
in that
he's
bottom
specifically
bottom
having a pretty rough game. 8k net
Tinggal-
worth
tinggal
versus the
ini nih.
10.5 from
line.
Lina.
Ah, lihat
Skin.
Nico Baby-nya
Good
mukanya
placement.
anjing.
He will get some info and actually survive this, perhaps.
Udah pasrah bangsat.
It's going on quite the walk.
Yep,
Nice
LSA,
steal.
Carl trying to find some more. TPs from Alliance are coming in, but the double burrow strike S4.
BKB.
BKB popped
Itu
by
dia,
Carl
BKB,
though, and
nongol.
FNG is just going to go down to the right clicks. Nico Baby trying to find some sort of collateral kill here. Whitemon's just going to
Gak ada damage kan Nico Baby anjing.
Nggak ada, cu. Attack speed-nya nggak ada, Ru. Fuck.
Makanya jangan apa nih, jangan ngambil item mahal anjir, jelek kayak gitu.
Quite a while before that.
Aneh-aneh
Hanskin, the
aja,
last
ya.
remaining member for now, attempting to TP.
Balikan nonton YouTube nih Nico Baby. YouTube siapa
And
coba ditonton.
T1 just dominating this.
Tadi
game
mukul
number
Ben
one
aja
is
nggak ada
best of
attack
three, and
speed-nya
again,
dah, cu.
you're just
Keburu
joining
kena
us, this
tidur.
is an elimination series.
Yeah, crucial there, right? They go for the tower dive. S4 with a very good TP and Sandstorm double stun, but where's the follow-up? The other heroes just aren't in position. The way this starts
Kalau
is as
begitu
a
mending gua link
10-second
kan yang
dive on
pagi.
Snapfire.
Bodo
They're
amat
taking
mahal.
so long to get in behind the tower and in position.
Enggaknya
You
enggak
need more
ditangkap sama
resources
Ben.
there. Like if you want to take this fight, you need all the key heroes ready. You know you're behind in the game. You're not going to win fights 3v5. So either you bring the whole cavalry or you just drop it and lose a hero there. But Alliance tries to do a bit of both, and that's just not going to cut it at this level. And T1 there doing a great job at administering their heroes, bringing them all around together, finding the team moves. And I mean, it's easy to say what Alliance have to do. It's a lot harder to do it.
Yeah, as you can see, the win
Probability
probability
nya 6% cu alien
greatly in
itu.
favor of T1 as expected after getting off to this really fast start.
Yep. Gabe Newell's favorite hero used to be Sand King, as we've talked about before.
That is true.
I think
That's
this
the
is why
6%.
he moved on from it, right?
Oh, okay. 23
okay.
Savage. Yep, easy kill for him again.
Oh, they will fight.
All right, that is
Ah,
a big
Linanya
kill
mati.
for Alliance onto Carl. That's exactly what they need here. Unfortunately for them, 23 Savage still applying pressure to the tier 2 mid.
Yeah, it's gone.
And it's just gonna go down. Aegis hasn't even been claimed yet.
Oh,
wait. Yeah, it has.
This item on Wraith King is so good, Brigand's Blade, the neutral, because your first hit does so much damage that you immediately get into the threshold where it starts mattering really quickly. Crazy good. Okay, trivia.
Huskar.
Trivia.
Huskar's the answer.
Trivia after this fight.
All right, we got. That's not much of a fight. FNG's dead. Nico Baby waveforming to safety. 23 Savage and company not going to pursue any further.
You sure about
Whitemon,
that?
okay.
Yeah.
This will be another big kill for
Siapa
T1.
tuh?
Nope, Starbreaker not
Bisa
able to
kabur
connect.
sih.
Could be able to remnant away for now. Escort taking so much damage will just be brought down to the right clicks alone. Whitemon finally dies. Such a pesky Bane Elemental. And Alliance getting some trades here.
Yeah, that's pretty good for Alliance given the circumstances. So you get a kill. Nico Baby gets 2 actually. He gets Cuckoo as well as Whitemon, so it's going to make some item progression here.
Yep.
Eyeing up a
Maka itu
Linken's, this
20 menit
doesn't feel
satu
like a
nomor biji
very
tuh.
strong
Nggak
build
tahu
to me
farming
just
gimana.
because like you're going to
Tahu,
have these
gue main
stats,
carry
but you
nggak
don't
secepat
have
itu anjir,
that
sumpah. Nggak ngerti
massive
cara
combo
farming.
play with, say, a Sand King when you go Ags or some massive damage output from an E-Blade. So I'm just worried that the damage isn't going to be there when T1's heroes get a little bit bigger. That's going to be my main concern.
Is this one of those instances where when you're behind, you want to take more risks to try to get back into the game, and going Linken's just feels too safe almost?
It's the thing, you know, I love to say this. You're playing not to lose rather than playing to win. And playing not to lose in this day and age in Dota rarely works in my experience. If you're behind, you need to go for the... Let's say you have 15% chance of winning with a play, right? If it's the best chance you have, you take it even though the odds are terrible. Because the alternative is even worse, which is you don't go for it and then you just lose by default. And that is something I think, you know, not that we're going to be talking a lot about public games or anything, but I think that's a mentality that people are not particularly good at adapting to in their public games, is that if you're far behind, hiding away is not a winning strategy pretty much ever, unless the enemy team is going to throw in your base.
Which happens.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the level
more
of
often
play,
in
right?
pubs than in pro play, though, right? So
it depends on the level of play, of course, but yeah, sometimes you just got to take the risk even if the odds aren't good. Carl will be spotted up by S4. Well, who found who, actually?
Yeah, that's a good question. FNG jumps in.
Well.
There comes a Solar Guardian, though.
Udah Linken
Just
juga
like
rupanya
this,
sih.
T1 is here in
Wah, ampun.
numbers. FNG sacrificing himself to the gods here as S4 gets horn tossed and likely will be brought down next. So 2 quick kills for T1. And Alliance attempting to get out of dodge, but Hanskin gonna get spotted out. 23 Savage. Yeah.
Good luck gak tuh?
Arm length is apparently goes through Fog of War.
All right, here's my trivia. If you know this, what is something you would really want me to give you if you're right? I'm very confident you don't know this.
Okay, a Snickers.
A Snickers. Okay, if
Yeah.
you're right, you'll get. All right,
Dicari
that's some
Kenstan,
free product
gue
placement
pikir
right there.
True. I'll get you a
Hah?
note.
Kenstan
What
mati
is the
semuanya.
name of the passive of Brigand's Blade?
Bro.
The passive.
Harus di Kenstan
It's
itu
like
WK-nya
something
anjir.
mercy.
Oh iya.
2 kali 3 kali.
Dark Mercy. That was
Yeah,
pretty-
I remember reading it. I couldn't remember the first word.
No
Gak bisa
idea,
ngadu
that's
pukul
pretty
anjir
good.
sama WK.
You can get half a bar for
All
that.
right,
That's pretty
you-
impressive.
Are you gonna eat the first?
If
I
that
don't
gets
want
you
that.
all excited, I will
No,
do it.
I
I will
don't.
do that for you. I'm a good friend.
So you say.
That's actually a Jenkins quote. Let's pretend I never said that.
True. So T1, yeah, this is shellacking for sure so far. Question is, what
Yeah.
can Alliance do? They're going for that safe build on Nico Bay with the Lincoln Sphere.
And
And
he's-
really limp his build. It feels like, I mean, he has the BKB, which is really needed. The casual Sage with Maelstrom helps you farm, but
Nico is queuing up a Satanic next time.
really?
Again, it's I'm just worried about the damage, right? Like, Ember went Sanj into BKB.
Well, I think, no, he's still going Lincolns, though, right? He has the ultimate orb, and
He's queued it as his next quick buy, which usually when pro players do that, it's like, okay, the thought process is there, right? You're like, okay, this is the next thing I want. I think looking at Alliance's lineup, there's still a lot of value to an E-Blade, just because if you get a Blink Hex from Lion onto, say, Lina, you can actually burst someone instantly with all of the magic damage you have, but you're not really taking advantage of it. The downside to that kind of build is, well, where's your physical component in a lineup that's almost purely magical? So then that would be a problem. But this way you have neither, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Your Morphling can play to survive, but he's not really going to kill, I think. So worrying here for Alliance, but of course, if they do win one fight because Morph survives and turns it around, then maybe they can find.
Quick Hex. S4, no, not going to go for the epi.
Yep. Good damage onto 23 Savage, but one of the great boons to Wraith King is this lifesteal. So 2 hits on the wave heals a lot.
Nico Baby now with the Lincolns online. And yeah, a lot of, I mean, I guess not a lot. There's a decent amount of single target skills for T1 to take that off. But from Bane, it just takes so long to cast, right? Even in Feeble, it's a bit of a process, and especially against something like Morph. I can see the thought process for sure.
The cast point of Enfeeble is actually not that bad.
But I guess they've changed that skill so much.
Yeah, I think it's a while ago that got changed, but it's always been considered a good Lincoln's Breaker skill just because it's high cast range and it's such a, I don't want to say unimportant spell, but you know what I mean, right? You're not throwing away your Nightmare to break a Lincoln so you don't have it defensively. This is one of the best spells in the game, in my opinion, against Lincoln. So all Whitemon needs to do is have good positioning, break the Lincolns with the Enfeeble, and then he can look for Fiend Script or Nightmare, whatever he wants to do on that Morph. All right, Burrow Strike.
S4, 23 Savage.
They are poking him quite well here.
Nice armlet toggle for now. He has the Deso going for the AC next.
Very close.
He will live.
Good out.
Of course, he does have 2 lives, so it'll be difficult to take him out regardless.
All right, Sunsven trivia.
Oh boy.
For the second half of your game. What is the passive of Dragon Scale?
That I have no idea. Let's say armor.
You know, based on some of the naming conventions we've had recently, that's not a bad guess. It is called Afterburn.
Yeah, I would not. That sounds like a shaving product almost. As we have Alliance.
Do you want to advertise some more things here? What's the plan?
Not ready to go out quite yet. Cinderin is Alliance trying to do something here against T1, but the longer they wait, the more the deficit becomes, it seems. And Limp will just be TPing out for now, but has a Remnant available to come back into the fight if he wants.
That is a tanky courier. 23 Savage will get his Elven Tunic.
Yeah, and completed
What is the
AC.
passive of Elven Tunic?
I don't look at...
It doesn't have one. It was a trick question.
Well, technically it does have
has
a passive.
3 passives,
Yeah.
but no name.
No names. Yeah.
All right.
Understood.
Dewarding here. 23.
Oh my god!
Apa yang terjadi?
Literal one shot.
Hilang nggak tuh?
Sekali pukul cuy. Deso sama Wira anjir.
Hilang tuh, Pak. Dia kena pedangnya langsung ini, langsung jadi abu. Gosong.
Ini sumpah, padahal WK tuh bener-bener nggak meta loh, nggak meta sama sekali anjir, nggak ada yang mau make. Udah kena nerf dari 730A karena sampai 730.
We have different levels of expectancy. I guess the PAs in your game don't have the same items at minute 29.
That's right, Cinderin S4 trying to mount some sort of a defense here, but this is with the Aegis online for Carl. Obviously, Wraith King doesn't need one. Although we do see them take it relatively often, but I like to see it on the Lina this game. Considerable amount of damage done to that tier 3 top, and T1 going to reset.
Carl hits really hard with this Empower. It's
21.000 network
I think in a way it's still
advantage.
underappreciated when we commentate Empower. We are always focused on the melee heroes that get cleaves, so they can farm ancients, etc. But having any hero that just attacks a lot inherently just gives it power value, even if it's ranged. Right? Lina has insane attack speed, so she's probably one of the best Empower heroes in the meta right now. Actually,
barangnya baru dari tadi baru BKB.
Itu yang maksud gue ditangkap itu.
Dia stunnya gak kena, goblok.
Goblok banget tuh, Pak.
Dia kalau stunnya kena skill 1 ini mati tuh di Laguna.
But they won't sweat it, I'm sure, as this lead is.
Udah gampang banget soalnya. Udah hex kan.
No mistake there. Playing the sad trombone is very appropriate there.
Yeah, we got the horn toss with the skewer.
Dua orang nggak tuh?
S4 is going to be the first to fall in all likelihood. Nico Baby staying alive at half. We'll get up to safety. So just 1 kill with that RP, but Carl Pasta BKB gets the LSA with a buyback onto S4 now. Starbreaker connect, here comes a Solar Guardian as well. Nico Baby, very tanky right now with that Lincoln Sphere. Nice Burrow Strike Epicenter combination from S4. He's ever trying to get to safety with that hammer, but it's not going to happen. So the 1-for-1 with the buyback. Carl and company. Looks like they're going to lose the Dawnbreak at the very least. S4 continuing to be a pest here with these Burrow Strikes. Gets 1 kill. Looks like Wraith King is next.
Mati juga akhirnya,
After the reincarnation, so T1 have to back off.
That's a very
Nice
good
defense
hold
from Alliance.
Yeah, they only had
Pas tapi di bawah gak ada yang jarang nangkap Ember.
Arguably, maybe, you know, Carl getting a little bit overzealous trying to kill the Morph. As we've talked about, it's a tanky Morphling, and you don't necessarily have to kill Nico Baby in a position like that. You can safely, you know, go for other heroes that die a lot faster or try to push the tower, but got a little bit bloodthirsty. You can get carried away in these positions, and again, This RP is good, but great counterplay from Hanskin to get that double Earth Spike.
Oh,
Pre-BKB for this.
Itunya
And that will save
ketangkep
Nico Baby
tuh.
getting mounted. This is where the overcommitment happens, right? So you go for this, go very, very deep. Solar Guardian, I believe, got interrupted here by another good 2-hero stun from FNG.
Leonnya MVP sih anjir.
And now you're just in a really
Stun hitternya dia. Hitternya
Iya,
ke stun
dua kali.
dua-duanya. Iya.
Yang pertama Linanya kan yang di depan gitu. Terus pas ngetes juga ke stun lagi. Parah men.
And now Nico has the item I like to see.
Mulai
He's
nge-troll.
got the axe. So now he can turn into Sand King, and that's big. This gives them a double Barrow Strike combination play.
Kayak Nico
Be
Baby
careful, he's taking
anjing.
so much damage from
He is, but looks like he's fine for now. His limit,
Ya.
a lot of space here
Jauh
for
banget
the
tuh
lane.
waktu itunya.
S4 a little bit
Udah
too
kena
far this
dorong
time.
duluan.
He doesn't have buyback.
Balik sih, bener.
Everyone obviously know this. They just bought back in the enemy base. So
Fucking
this
Lina.
does
Cooldown,
open up
cu.
a potential push down mid
And that
play for
actually
them.
is pretty
Stunnya
big
nggak
because
kena.
Morphling can't turn into.
Ini baru nih ada hex, ini baru ada hex.
Baru.
Ya PKB
Nggak,
gak tuh
PKB.
dia. Mati sih. Oke,
Di RP dong. Emang nggak perlu di RP sih.
Nggak perlu sih, dipukul aja mati sih harusnya itu.
Iya. Lidahnya itu sakit pukulannya anjir.
Ini gak yakin nih, ragu dia ragu cu. Si kuku ragu.
But like I said, Morphling can't turn to the Sand King for another 40 seconds, so this Ag, like,
Mahal soalnya Ember kan pasti.
Snapfire could be good
Mau nggak
later
mau
in the
anjir
game.
biar
I don't know,
pasti
do the talents
secure.
even- Does that work through
Kalau
talents?
support nggak akan di RP itu.
Is this Rax is going to be
Ngapain
a
tuh?
complete freebie for
So
T1.
fast.
Iya,
Like,
makanya.
Lina is just an absolute
Nggak worth it
artillery
satu
weapon. That's not
ulti
the
buat
right
dia
word.
tuh.
Machine gun was what I was looking for. Going
A
straight in for
trebuchet,
the
Cinder, and
next.
your favorite. Carl
Mati
with
tuh orang.
the blade, down goes Snapfire.
dapat
Nico.
Nope, not anymore. That's 2 right off the bat here.
Nico Baby, Murlek, Nico Babi.
See S4 will be back in 10
Beast.
seconds, but it's
Nico kado.
going to be 2 full
Eh,
sets
jelek
of
anjing
Rax
Nico
for
kado.
T1.
Yeah. And they might back off here and wait for the next RP.
Keren sih
You don't
orang.
have to risk any push here in order to finish the game. If you wait 50 seconds, you might feel like it's pretty much in the bag. Gaben giving
Nico
Alliance
Baby again
1%
buat
here.
siapa nih?
Okay.
SK
Very
buat Ember.
gracious.
I mean, to be fair, S4 in that original high ground defense did a
Okay,
really
now
good
Gaben
job.
gives them 0. He's had enough.
Oh boy.
You started talking about saying
Satu
King and Gabe was
lane
like, I
lagi
don't
ya,
like
lane
this
apa
hero
doang.
anymore. So
Cover.
Oh,
there
no.
goes your last percent. Thanks,
Very
Suns fan. You
sad.
ruin everything you touch, don't you?
That's true.
Yeah, okay.
Aegis is now
Kind of
playing.
like Kyle with predictions.
Yeah, that's actually an uncanny skill that
That
he
is-
has.
That's pretty impressive.
And T1 looking to finish this game, although no Aegis to work with now, and Alliance obviously know that, and this is going to be their best chance to win a fight. Look for Nico Baby to morph into
Katanya
S4
jual ini,
soon.
jual
I
armlet.
bet Kyle, I challenge
Iya
you,
dong, jual
Kyle,
armlet.
to tweet right now.
Jual
T1
armlet,
has this in the
beli
bag.
dagger
Yeah,
sama
let's see.
Tamiasa.
How strong the curse is. If you do that,
Suatu
and T1
kesalahan
end up
sepertinya,
losing, you
anjing.
will get a candy bar of your choice
of
from me.
your choice.
Mhm.
Wow. He does not
Some
have
pretty-
time
probably
to
some
actually
pretty
take out
delicious
his
and
phone.
maybe quite exquisite and expensive candy bars out there if you know where to look. So it's a lot to gain here for Kyle, and no risk even.
Go man.
That's true. Well, the risk is ruining his image of getting everything wrong.
That's true. That's actually pretty valuable to him, I think.
I think so too. He's really enjoying that.
Yeah,
Kasih ya.
has to be fun.
T1 looks like they're ready to go and try and finish this game. S4 wants to defend. We'll see how much they have in the tank here. T1 going to be happy with the tier 3. We'll back and reset.
Roche can respawn in 2 minutes. If you want to, you can wait for this.
I can't blame them. I mean, this is
High
TI
stakes.
TI-10, lower bracket. Another shout out. You can actually check the bracket right now. That's a new addition to the extension. If you go to the standings, it shows the full bracket.
Kalau menang
Very
2-0
nicely.
nih, pada kaget
Suns
nih
fan, I
anjir.
have a trivia.
Oh boy.
What is the passive
Underdog ya kan lawan.
Enough with these passives.
of
Alien.
Mindbreaker called? I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
You like very simple names.
Silence.
That's the first word. What is the second word?
Is it silent something?
Yes.
Silent strike.
Silence strike. Okay, you get your
Oh,
point. That's a really
All
good
right.
guess.
Thank you.
All right.
Beautiful.
Definitely didn't look over my shoulder there and
No,
cheated
I-
the test.
I would never do that.
No,
to
you actually didn't, did you? I trust you.
Why would I?
You have so much to gain from this.
No, I'd like to look like an
Your
idiot,
image.
actually.
Oh, that's true. You and Kyle should start a team.
Maybe we should start a new podcast together. Might be an opening pretty soon. Is 31K net worth lead for T1, and definitely playing a little bit disciplined. Cuckoo. Yeah, horn toss is
Jauh
there.
banget
Escort is
didorongnya.
dead. 60 seconds on the deck.
Dalam
That skewer range
dalam
now,
20
that's so
anjir.
absurd. Like you're expecting that skewer to stop.
Gak
any
bisa di
second
follow
now,
up
and it
cuy.
just keeps
Saking
going.
jauhnya.
Yeah. I mean, this feels like, I mean, you talk about Elder
Yang
Titan.
follow up ya mati anjing.
Iya mati dia kejauhan.
Hero of the tournament right now. In a lot of ways.
He is doing very
Getting
well.
through a lot of
Oh my
Oh
god.
my god,
Oh,
toh.
Leonnya
Fuck.
tuh hilang. Oh my god.
Allah, oke dah. Ini GG sih, GG sih, GG kelihatan banget dah. Dah udah GG. Mencret cuy. Itu nggak dipukul disamperin doang udah mencret tuh musuhnya.
Di stun di ini kan apa? Overwhelming.
Di overwhelming blink langsung boom, langsung mati tuh.
That was just not even close.
Ya Allah.
T1 basically
Cuy langsung di abu babak lainnya.
stage. Alliance
Sian
had a couple
banget.
of good moves in the first 10 minutes, but after that it was just all T1 all the way to the bank. And they secure themselves game number 1 with a 39k gold lead here.
Mari lihat caster
Alliance,
Indo
I think
ini yang
adjustments for game number 2,
Buat
you
mana
probably,
buat-
if you're
buat-
drafting like this
mana
and you
buat-
give the enemy team Magnus and you give them like this strong team fight and a favorable mid matchup, you have to play around Limp more. Like this needs to go faster. Or you need to take a different approach to the draft entirely where you feel confident just taking time for yourself. It was just T1 dictating everything in that game and just doesn't cut it. You need to challenge them, you need to get... This is what's most important at this level of play. Don't let the enemy team be comfortable, right? And they were just comfortable the whole time. T1 just looked in their element the whole game.
Well, still, just one game. They can try to shake this off. They have a lot of experience, of course, but this is a best of 3 Cinderman. But let's see what the panel has to say about this first game going to T1.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to see Cinder and also rocking the maroon hashtag Team Merlot. But we've got to start by seeing if you guys agree with our lovely casters there. Do you think Alliance played well in the first 10 minutes, Owen?
I mean, it was better than the other minutes of the game. So, relatively sure. But, I mean, overall, I mean, it was what I expected. And it was more so what I expected when they let them get this Magnus and Lina. I mean, I don't know how you can expect to beat T1 on the main stage when you let them have these 2 heroes, which have clearly been their best heroes so far of the tournament. I guess they wanted an impossible challenge. They certainly got it that game.
They did talk about the reason they beat Beast Coast as being their preparation and not feeling any pressure. So why on earth wouldn't they ban that Magnus after watching LGD yesterday?
There's just too many heroes that you need to be banning. Maybe that's the thing, right? Like versus Zephyr, you need to ban out that ET earlier that every single team is banning or picking. Then you have the Doom, then you have the 23 Savage Medusa. There's just too many components here that they're thinking of. Maybe they thought, okay, this is probably the easiest for us to beat. It's also their comfort zone. We can't ban everything out, so let's give them the Mag and the Lina and try to work with it. It didn't work out.
But they did seem unprepared, because even going into their first picks, they were using reserve time. That was a huge shock to me. You come into a best of 3 in game 1 particularly, where you've had, you know, the entire night to prepare. You should know exactly what you're going to be picking in that first phase based on your opponent, because they knew they were going to leave the Magnus. They had to have had a game plan for a first pick Magnus, and they went in reserve time for 2 picks.
Yeah, and we were talking about S4 having these marvelous games. Sometimes this definitely wasn't one of those. Maybe he was micromanaging the team a little bit too much and they weren't helping him. I feel like, yeah, you need to activate Limp, you need to help out your mid laner, but as well, your Sand King can't be 111. Your Sand King can be completely stomped in the laning stage because who will make any plays for your side then?
Well, looking at the draft, do you think that Sand King was ever part of the plan?
Maybe not plan A. I mean, I think not many. There are some teams last pick and they were offlining, but it felt like when they got to his pick, there was not much left that was going to fit the game for him. And I think this game really highlighted, you know, why most teams don't have their kind of shot call play role, because it is really hard to do both when you're a core player, you know, winning your lane as well as trying to lead your team.
And also quite shocking for T1. That could have been the fastest game they've actually played here at the main event of TI. We should probably see if we can get our stats guy Leah on that one, because I'd be really interested to know. Do you think the pace was simply because T1 just had the confidence, they knew it, they had it in the bag, or because there was a risk of Alliance actually being able to scale up and take back the tempo, Owen?
I mean, maybe if the game went... I mean, I don't know. Sure, they had a more fun Alliance, but they were just so far behind. I don't know if any amount of duration of that game would have made things any better for them. Like, they were just so far behind. I think T1, they're happy to play the game at any stage. We just see sort of that high ground push where things started to go, ooh, they were 23k up, so they're pretty comfortable. T1 obviously resetting, and then they sort of did what they've done in a lot of the other games that we've seen here, really. A team that's very, very safe, and they make sure not to throw games away. There was just that little bit of a premature push down the mid, but other than that, they were ready to fall back to the same way they've won a lot of their games, which is just sort of stall it out, get this incredible lead, and get to the point where there's just no chance for the enemy.
You can imagine what they were going for, right? With the Sand King and the Morphling, there is synergy there. It's not like Sand King was something completely unprepared. You have the Aghanims on the Morphling, then Sand King, double stuns, double Sandstorms. It can be really difficult to deal with, but they got there way too late. I think they let the Wraith King ramp up way too fast. Armlet, Dezo, and Blink Dagger.
That's great.
Yeah, it was just all in fights. Just go straight, no Radiance, no shenanigans, no farming, just fight constantly. And it worked out for T1.
I was going to say, what did we like about 23 Savage's Wraith King? I mean, what was there not to like, to be fair?
Yeah, it was everything. It was none of this. I think we saw Wraith King in the group stage. I can't remember which team played it, but it was like Midas, Radiance, farming. And I mean, this game, 23 Savage, he goes to prove you get these items, you fight, and you're making just as much money as the Wraith King that's going to go AFK and just hit creeps all game and then inevitably lose the game, because the hero just doesn't feel that good when it's played in that sort of Midas, Radiance, AFK way. You want to do exactly what 23 Savage did here. I was a little hesitant when I saw the pick come up last, because I was worried that, oh, maybe they're going to do that, but then, of course, it's like, no, it's T1. They're going to fight, they're going to brawl, they're going to get him involved at every possible moment. And we saw him one-shotting heroes. Poor old Bob's FNG or something just disappears underneath the blade of him. I mean, he was having a great time. And I think that's awesome to see, T1 bringing out these sort of carries that aren't necessarily the top carries of the meta, and just showing how strong and confident they are. It just goes to show we've not seen everything that T1's ready to show here on the main stage. They've definitely got lots up their sleeve.
I've now got a new mantra to play in Wraith King. Why waddle when you can blink? Why did Purge never teach me that before when I was trying to play Wraith King and I was complaining about how slow his animation is when trying to get last hits? Do you think actually now we're going to see more Wraith King, now that 23 Savage has showed it could be viable at the main event?
I'm not quite sold. I think Magnus also enabled the hero quite a bit.
I don't think we loved the pick at the time, but perhaps we underestimated what... I think the Magnus is a big part of why you don't have to go for the Radiance build, because you do have that, flash
Power,
farm and power ability, so...
It's definitely a strong hero, and 23 Savage, what amazes me is that this guy, he hasn't been at the TI before. He was just picked up. He played a little bit in Vici Gaming. Well, not really played, and then they took him to T1, and he's already on the main stage of the international, and he's picking heroes that are not in the meta and feeling extremely comfortable on them. That's huge. That just shows the confidence.
Yeah. I have a feeling big things are ahead for this kid. But right now, we're actually going to take a trip down memory lane and see when big things were afoot for Alliance.
My favorite memory from past TS would be TI3, where we Alliance won. I remember almost every game I played, because most of the games we played there really stood out. It was my first TI I went to, and for me, it was just completely new. Since I watched the previous TIs, I watched TI2, and that's where I got really into Dota. And going into my first TI in TI3, I would pretty much remember everything about that TI.
I was, I believe, 15 or 16 years old boy who was watching TI1, and I'm still a fan of competitive scene of the Dota, so I can't say, I'm only the player. Yeah, right now I'm the player, but also, since I worked as a talent on 3 TIs, I know the feeling when you watch the game and you want to play it, but you also want to watch it because you see good players compete at it. This, one step being fan and one step being player is such a cool feeling, actually.
I did watch the TI1. But I was not into it so much. But TI2 was really when I was like, wow, this game is good. I need to really, I want to be these guys, The
best TI? Well, all of them are best, It depends on what makes it the best for you, Is it the players? Is it the place? Is it the tournament itself, In the end of the day, it's still a huge, a holiday, basically, where you legit enjoy yourself, enjoy your games, enjoy the show, and just love your life, you know.
What do you think is the future of TI? Do you think there will ever not be a TI? Are we going to make it to TI 100? What do you think?
In the end, it's the fans who supports the most, right? Like we get this huge prize pool because fans love the game and they're trying to be part of it in any way they can. So as long as there are fans in community, it will go like, you know, infinity.
Do you guys have any memories of TI3?
A lot, yeah. That finals, I mean, the TI3 Na'Vi Alliance is like one of the craziest Game 5 Grand Finals ever. The comeback, and I remember just sitting in the stands. I was next to the Korean commentators at the event, and they're just screaming, going crazy. The Russian commentators on the other side of them, they're going absolutely wild throughout the entire game as well. And it was just, the Battle Royale atmosphere was one of the kind of most electric places to be because it was that kind of smaller, more intimate venue. And yeah, it just produced so many amazing matches.
Given that S4 was part of that winning lineup, were you quite excited when you saw him return to the Alliance brand?
For sure, everyone wanted him back on Alliance. They struggled since pretty much TI3, so with him returning, you're thinking, okay, they can do it again. And I really like what FNG said. It's not about the TI itself when it comes to the Dota and the games. It's about what makes it special for you. It's the experience that you had. And TI3 for me is exactly that. It's what TI1 was for him. That's TI3 for me. It's one of those first ones that I watched that made me really love the game and try and get there. Eventually I did get there, but not necessarily as a player.
Well, listen up, guys. FNG, he worked 3 TIs as talent, and now he's playing in a booth.
There's still chance.
There's still a chance, but who is the most likely to be chosen to play TI? Hashtag TI10, let us know. But right now, our teams are taking to the stage, and thank goodness for them, none of us are among their ranks. T1 and Alliance. This could be the last game we see Alliance play on the stage here at the National Arena in Bucharest, Romania. So tensions are going to be slightly high in the booth. Meanwhile, T1, let's see if they got a taste for fast games after that one. So much is going to be on the draft in this one. And Alliance, they're the only team here who don't have a coach. Obviously, we saw Jake talking to March earlier. He's a coach you want on your side. For Alliance, if you could give them any advice, I know it's a difficult spot to be in, what do you want to see them do next in this next game, Lizard?
I always go back to OG and how they would talk in the booth after a loss. Just forget about the game. We're here to win. Enjoy it. Rely on each other. You can do it. Just get the good vibes going. Get that PMA going. Believe in yourself. Believe in what worked for you throughout the DPC seasons, and try your best.
Yeah, I never feel like there's anything you can say that's going to change, like, in terms of, like, strategy or skill. It's all you can do is focus on where your head's at when you're looking at, you know, bouncing back from a tough loss.
I'd say, you know, focus on just changing it up. You know, Alliance, I think they do best when they come in one game, and if they lose, you know, just going from something completely different. And this man, I keep calling for, I just want to see him play as Void. I know that they do like having him on like the Morse producers or the AFK, but I really think Nico Baby, get him involved earlier, get him active. They're lacking something when they're just sort of fighting with the four of them against a team like T1. Get Nico Baby on something that he can turn up to the fight and fight back against this just incredible power that T1 brings early.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think this team is very similar to that Mineski team that Nico Baby was on last TI. The only time they were winning games was when Nico Baby was like solo carrying the game, getting involved, and he was like, he's the guy. I don't feel like, you know, Alliance isn't a team that can do it like OG did yesterday, where Sumail gets completely shut down, but they still win the game because everyone else steps up. Limp, S4, they're just not those guys. They're going to play stable, they're going to be consistent, but Nico Baby is the win condition for Alliance every single game.
So what is so special about Nico Baby's Void?
Oh, it's great. I mean, the hero's still good. I think he's underpicked, really. And I don't know, so this day and age where you have so many of these heroes sort of raising up in the meta, like these ETs, it's just a perfect setup. And, you know, what's better against these teams that want to try and brawl as a 5-man than a hero that's going to be able to turn up, lock them in position, and set up a turnaround?
I would love to see that. I would love to see Nico Baby on some full comfort zone, but his morphling is also really scary. So I would maybe take my attention elsewhere. I would take it to the offlane and the mid lane, and no matter what you pick for Nico Baby, make sure that the other 2 lanes are doing well. So even if you sack him early on, if you get him a bad matchup like that Void versus something that's decent versus Venomancer or whatnot, make sure that Limp and S4 are having a good time, because they will be the ones that get you through that mid game. They didn't have a mid game in that last game. The first game was awful in that aspect.
They need to pick their heroes earlier, I feel like. They first two picked the two supports. S4 had last pick when his best heroes are all banned. There was no Tide, there was no Mars. All these teamfight specialists that he likes to play weren't available. And Limp, they could have first two picked the Lina, so I feel like they need to prioritize making sure they get those comfort picks so that S4, Limp can have those kind of consistent performances.
This is the funny thing about Alliance. They did incredibly well in DPC. I mean, they came first back in May. What were they doing while there? Can you remember, Gods? It is a while ago.
I mean, they were just consistent. I mean, this is, I think, always the story. I think I was talking to Owen about this before. They played consistent Dota. What's that look, Owen?
I'm smiling.
We're not used to seeing it.
Yeah.
When he's off camera, he's a miserable git. I am only joking. He's absolutely delightful. And hopefully this game will be game number 2, Alliance versus T1.
Lions versus T1. Game 2.
Welcome. New draft, new panel. We have replaced some of our panel members. My name's still Plus, and I'm joined by Tall Fogged and Canadian Effie, also known as Purge and Jenkins.
Yeah, that's basically right. You got it.
Yeah?
I'm fine with that.
Right, cool.
We'll take it.
Well, we are getting into game number 2 between T1 and Lions. And in last game, we saw a pretty dominant performance by T1, especially mechanically. They're always that top team. There's a hero that stood out to me, as he tends to, which is the Magnus. And I know, Jenkins, you've been praising this hero a lot this TI.
Yeah, so I've been trying to think about what makes this hero tick. Why is it that it feels so strong in this TI? And I think there's an element of, it's obviously really strong, and I like that people are respecting it now and finally banning it out. But my theory was that in TI, people 5-man because they don't want to lose. You really don't want to lose. You just want to play safe. The whole, family theory. The comfort of being around your teammates. You're not going to be the one that's like throwing the game. I also think at TI, with that 5-manning, the value of being able to like fish for kills goes up immensely. So, it's a cursed name, but Pudge, for example, has been good at previous TIs for the same reason. You have this wall that's being formed with a really good team. You hook somebody out, all of a sudden it disrupts everything. And then also, BKBs is also something that as things get more and more pressured, as you're playing safer and safer, BKB comes earlier and earlier in the builds. And what does Magnus have as his ultimate? It's like the best BKB piercing disable in the game.
And I think the most important thing for Magnus there about the pick-off thing is that you don't necessarily have to commit RP to get those pick-offs now. You can either use Shockwave to collect them or Horn Toss, so it's way less resources to go for those fishes than it used to be.
Yep, 100%.
Sorry, I can't gloss over this point. You say Pudge was good at previous TIs?
He was good at previous TIs.
Like TA6, right?
Yeah.
When they picked it in the final?
Of course.
And the one game they lost?
Yes, of course.
Was with Pudge.
I did a replay review of that game.
Yeah.
Very depressing.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Just little thing. I want to talk about another hero that we've been seeing a lot. Actually, this combo is pretty strong. Even Fogged was suggesting for Alliance, the Snapfire Tide. The Tide made sense within this teamfight idea, but what has made the Snapfire resurge so much?
A lot of it is just that she has a free force staff for their second skill, and because teams are so good at TI, sometimes even 300 distance is enough to keep somebody alive from a gank. So the fact that she has that from the beginning to the end of the game, plus high coordination, makes it amazing. Her ulti is great for getting kills. Her laning stage is really solid, especially when you pair her with a minus armor dual lane like the Tide setup. They have a much higher chance to get kills, and that's one of the issues with Alliance's lineup in the previous match, was that it was Snapfire plus Sand King. It isn't really that synergistic other than a double stun, so it wasn't the best dual lane. They ended up not doing so good against the Wraith King, and I think this is going to be a much better way to play.
I think also on top of what you said about, people are obviously much better at TI than during DPC or something like that. With Snapfire and even though it's only 300 units, in TI, there's a lot of combos. There's a lot of team fight for all of the reasons that we've already talked about. And so combo breakers have immense amounts of value. And so any hero that can do that, whether it's a hero that gets an early force staff or a hero that has one built in, it's going to be good.
Right. And on the T1 side, this time, we see the double support combo, Lion and Dream Protector. I actually want to talk to you, Jenkins or Perch, about the idea of draft tree, because we've been seeing this a lot. And if you have the two straight picks in the first phase, they are starting with supports always, right? They're not revealing a core here. Can you explain to me why that mentality might be?
Well, for T1, one thing that they've done, it was in the Animator that I noticed it, but something that they've done a lot is that they pick complementary heroes in the first phase. So I don't necessarily know if it's important that it's support. It's, to me, it's more so with this team that both of these heroes cover a lot of bases. You have a Train Protector who's going to be protecting all of the towers. He's going to be sitting in a side lane pushing out creep waves. Does Lion hit a single creep in Dota? Absolutely not. This hero is like completely looking for kills. He's standing in trees, but he needs lanes to be pushed out in order to do that, and that's what Tree does. Tree pushes lanes. So having a hero that can play in side lanes in Tree and push out creep waves, and then having a hero that can actually gank off of it is really important. And then between these two heroes, there's also like, not a lack of disable. They do good disable, they do good damage. T1 does this. They cover all of their bases in their first 2 picks, so that way their final 3 picks can be whatever makes sense for the enemy lineup.
And it's so much easier to be flexible when that's the case, because then you don't have to make up for lackings. You don't have to worry about maybe your lane pairings be weak. That's a lot of the reason that Alliance opened like they did. A lot of teams are doing this. You grab your 4 and your 3. It's a really synergistic combo, and it brings this much bigger threat against the enemy carry position, who now has to say, like, well, we can't be greedy at all. We also have to pick something good, and it's just going to restrict your opponent's options.
And to add to that point, the 4 and the 3, when they pick it, is always in the first and fourth pick in the first phase. So you can actually protect the 3 a bit with the next 3 bans. And this will change what happened in the last game, but the Sand King didn't seem that strong in the laning phase.
Well, I briefly watched the beginning of the replay, and what mostly cost him, he went Caustic Finale level 1, which is not that weird against a Wraith King. You can do lots of damage. But I hearken it back to that dual lane issue between Snapfire and Sand King. What happened is Wraith King got a couple more denies than Sand King. It took like 2-ish minutes for them to get level 2 or something. It was a bit delayed due to the denies. And as a result, he doesn't have Burrow Strike for a while, so they just have no kill potential on the Bane. And because Bane was such a good laning hero, he actually ended up getting like a range creep pulled to the large camp. Then he stacked his small camp. Then he pulled his double stack small camp. This is stuff that's like pretty unheard of typically in the laning stage right now.
Yeah, that's insanely game losing.
So like that advantage that they got out of it forced them into this like constant separation where Sand King didn't even get to play next to Snapfire. So then Wraith King just has an abundance of net worth advantage, and he still has a Magnus, so it's just going to get more worse for Alliance as the game continues. So it was a lot of a laning issue, but some of that was certainly draft specific.
Okay. Do you think it would have changed if they had not gone for Caustic Finale level 1? Like Burrow Strike or Sandstorm, would that have made a difference?
If it wasn't Bane, maybe, because Bane has pretty high armor, so he's going to resist a little Shredder, and he's going to be able to offset some of that heal with Brain Sap. So I think if it's a slightly weaker support, absolutely. But I think they did the right thing in the circumstance. It's just they didn't lane well enough, and they got pulled on too much.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sand King notoriously is a hero that really struggles between levels 1 through 3. But once you have high levels in Sandstorm, it's really easy to lane because you just press Sandstorm, push the creep wave out. If the enemies go on you, you just stun them in it, and they take a ton of damage. So delaying his level 3 timing is extremely important. T1 did that, and with heroes like Bane and Wraith King, who have a huge amount of kill threat and lane harass, it's really hard to play into that if you've messed up the first 3 levels. So it was like amplified by the fact that T1 had such a strong lane.
So now we hear the clapping, of course, the audience going crazy because Earthshaker has been picked. And this hero has been moved from the previous 4-5 who used to see him into the 3 position this TI. What led to this change in your opinion, Purge?
I'm not sure specifically what made him more popular there, but he kind of did fall off as a 4. Typically, like, he can like lane block people, and that's very effective, but because it's dual lanes, Earthshaker, without his shard being busted, which it was during the DPC at one point, he just felt weaker as a support. But now as a 3, it's like you still get the best of both worlds. You can lane quite well against a lot of cores, and then your impact in terms of team fights is excellent because of Blink Dagger combos. So it is certainly, I would say, top 3 off-lane hero right now.
Yeah,
so
really
no surprise to see it on T1.
Okay. Do you think the cleave they added to Enchant Totem might have helped him?
It definitely helps, yeah. That's something that like he scales better. My opinion on Earthshaker is that he's been pretty decent as an offlaner for quite some time, just because he has that like natural tankiness that's so annoying in an offlaner. Magnus has that as well, where you go to kill him and he's just some 3,000 HP hero if he goes for treads at like 15 minutes. Like, okay, this is... But then on top of that, I also think that the game is being played a lot faster than can support a position for Earthshaker, who you can't really take a lane to farm your blink these days. Like, in that timing, a team is going to beat you. That's just how Dota has kind of felt for like the last 5 to 6 months, where the hero has fallen off. But you're farming in the lane as Earthshaker, so the timing, you get it like 5 minutes earlier, and in that 5-minute window, you're not going to lose the game.
We see a FNG special, which is a Crystal Maiden. We've seen it, I think, once before, not to great success this hero. I think it was T1 actually picked against LGD. Why? Why the Crystal
I like
Maiden?
it. It's a lane stabilizer. It's good at harassing. It's going to lower attack speed. That's pretty effective in some of those early trades, and it's going to just make it a lot harder for them to kill Medusa in the laning stage.
Is she like a poor man's coddle here for the Dusa?
I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I guess it's kind of similar. You're blasting opponents, getting lane trade advantages, but extra mana regen on Tide and Snapfire are great too. It's going to make them be able to harass more often in the laning stage.
Is she going to be an easy target for the Slark, though?
Eventually, you know, Slark is a later timing hero where, at least looking at this draft for Alliance, I see the Dusa CM lane, which presumably it's going to be that. Even if they put Snapfire and did some, CM4, like that would still do very well against Earthshaker Lion. You know, Lion is very killable. Earthshaker's a hero who's going to sit on the wave. So you're super susceptible from the harass that's going to come out from the Mystic Snake and one of the nukes from either of these two supports. And if Snapfire comes in ganks, that's even more potential to kill an Earthshaker. So, you know, I feel like Alliance is going to get a lot of farm this game on both of their supports.
Now, if we look at the Slark a bit, I'd actually like to propose a problem here, and I would like a solution from you, Jenkins. So, you have no instant stuns, only roots here. Cookie is not going to surprise him. He's going to Dark Pact, unless you blink Ravage onto him, of course. That's the only solution. What is the Alliance's solution to this? Because mid laners don't usually carry that instant stun, except maybe DK.
You know, Force Staff's kiting him. Like I said, I think they're going to get farmed between their supports. So there's that option. You're right, there's not much instant stun. I do think with a Dusa, with a Tide, you can kite a Slark enough where you just catch him after his 2 Dark Packs and after his ult. I think that's actually possible. But you probably do want a little bit want to just rely on that because if the Slark is popping off, then he's just going to stick on you. He's just going to get tons of stacks, and you're playing these long fights against him. He's like, okay, that's great for me. If he has +1 item on the Dusa, especially, it's just impossible to play. Some instant disabler, you know, some hero who might build an Orchid would be great.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. What kind of hero could that be?
Any typical spirit hero is usually the
Tinggal mid doang sih yang belum tuh.
as Slark counters. Kunkka would have been great because you can X him and bring him back no matter whether or not he's going to dispel or not. So that would have given them some easier setup kills, and that's the issue with Alliance's draft. They don't really cross the map super well to get kills, so I definitely agree that they need somebody to be that start of the fight, because Crystal Maiden wants to play behind these tanky heroes, land her spells, sit back for 10 seconds, go back in again. Snapfire is going to want to have somebody that can start fights to make her ultimate feel useful. So
there it is.
Void Spirit is perfect for that. Jump in, disable somebody,
Classic
the Yules,
mid.
and allow your team to follow up, get a kill.
Musuhnya midnya Dina di
I
ban.
think this is a good Orchid game. I mean, people are like usually opting to go for a different style of Void Spirit build, which is the Dual Scepter into Sanjin Kaya, and you're just going for this like late game high magic
Doom di
damage
ban.
build. But I think in this game against the Slark, it does make sense. It does depend on the timings. Like if Slark is already having a bad game, you don't necessarily have to build the Orchid. It's fine to not build the Orchid because the Slark's not a problem. You can just kill him with your ground targeted nukes, for example.
Storm Ember
It's
juga
definitely in the cards.
open.
We're more likely to see it in this game than in the other Void Spirit games that we've seen.
Could you also build an Ags as an alternative to set up for the Slark? I mean, it's 2-second silence, not something you usually need to look out for.
Yeah, for sure.
It's probably a lot safer because then there's a lot of heroes on that dire lineup that you're going to want to silence. So
Stormpack.
Ags is going to be raw, a lot more survivability for Void Spirit. That's probably more important than the extra right-click damage and higher mana regen.
It is. It depends on how we like. If I think
Yang
Void
bisa
Spirits tend to
lompat
go
ke
for the Orchid like,
belakang
if they're having a
nangkepin
really
Snapfire.
good game. Yeah. I think that's just like Orchid in general. We see that on Spectre as well, where Spectres are not really building the Orchid unless you're like so farmed that you're going to get your next item at the same timing that you would without the Orchid because you're getting kills with it. So that's just kind of where Orchid falls as an item in Dota right now.
The biggest thing T1's missing right now is they need a hero that's going to go frontline and spot enemy squad. Slark can do that with Shadowblade or if he's just generally tanky and ready to go, but they don't really have a frontliner, and Ember Spirit's going to be perfect for that. Somebody that can jump in and set up fights and look for
Alah, classic mid lah Spirit Club cu. Kok gak Storm Ember?
I like that they can be very
Classic
aggressive. They have tons of disables. It's
Sudah biasa.
these heroes they can probably kill them, but it's going to be really hard against Tide and Dusa because they have so much survivability as well as Kraken shells. So there's good stuff about them. They got to split up Alliance and kill them one by one.
Jenkins for Alliance?
Ember harus main.
I think that Alliance has good heroes for ganking. I think they have good heroes for the early game and the Void Spirit and their 4-man around the Dusa. And I also think that they can play the long fights. I know T1 has Slark, but I still think that the long fights eventually will favor Alliance once they get enough items on their Dusa.
Is there anything they should be aware about as Alliance? some weaknesses of this draft?
Laning stage maybe for most of the group stage games we saw Slark get banned out against
Salah.
Tidehunter for worries of that extra harass, and with it being a tree, that's a pretty aggressive dual lane with Leech Seed in the Bramble, whatever, Nature's Grasp, there we go.
Yes, yes. I've heard that lane's not actually so bad for the
BSJ?
For the Tide anymore. Yeah, it was from BSJ, so maybe I should take that with a grain of.
No, he's a Slark spammer, right?
He's a Slark. He's an offlane player too, as well. So, but no, it does feel like that. Like Tide with Snapfire, especially, you've got like the double minus armor. It's so much harass. Like you could even skip Kraken Shell.
Well, I would love to go to BSJ now for the last word, but he's not here, so he's lazy. So we're gonna instead go to Suraction Slaxus once again with March.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much. We have March here yet again. March, a very quick tree and protector snag after that very standard opening coming from Alliance. Were you expecting that?
I mean, Snapfire is a very highly contested hero, and we like it too, so I think that's why they picked it up. We like that hero as well. Yeah.
All right, well, say no more. Very quickly, chances of this game win. How are you feeling? Give me a percent.
75%.
75%. Well, we're 100% ready to go into that game, so let's go ahead and throw it to our fantastic casters and Sunsfan.
Thank you, Slacks. Recycling memes as always. That's your entire job description these days. Sunsfan here with Cinderin. T1 versus Alliance. Game 2 of this best of 3 in the lower bracket. How do you like these lineups this time around, Cinderman?
I think I like how Alliance this game have solved a bit more of the team fight problem they had in the last game. I think the way their lineup groups around Medusa can work really well. But that said, I also think T1 have some really great tools. To me, this T1 lineup feels like Assassination Squad, right? You've got Ember, Lion, as well as Slark, who can immediately take advantage of any fissure, any overgrowth that you find from the tree line. Just get in there. I think the biggest challenge for Alliance, honestly, in this game is to keep their supports alive. I don't think playing Crystal Maiden is particularly fun in a game like this.
You could have just stopped it.
and even Snapfire, who's a relatively tanky support and stands far back, you're just not safe against these heroes. And a little bit of a problem is the protection that you have against Ember and Slark is relatively limited, right? Like, what do you have? You have Ravage, Frostbite, and a Cookie, and a bit of a stretch, you have an Aether Remnant, but that one's going to be hard to land. And Slark can purge off all of this if he times it well. So I think Alliance, absolutely paramount this game. Get off to a good start in the lanes, and you need honestly just stellar positioning on supports in this game to not just end up feeding.